On the night of April 14, 1912, the largest and most luxurious ocean liner in the world was gliding silently across the dark waters of the North Atlantic. People called this ship unsinkable, a floating palace that no force of nature could possibly bring down. Passengers danced in the grand ballroom, and champagne flowed endlessly in the first class, lounges high above the waterline. Yet as midnight approached, something completely unexpected was quietly drifting toward the ship. From somewhere out in the pitch-black horizon, it was a massive iceberg. By the time the lookout stationed high in the crow's nest finally spotted it, there was almost no time left to change course and avoid disaster. Within just a few short minutes, the ship, once considered the safest vessel ever built, became the central figure in one of history's most infamous maritime tragedies. So what exactly caused this so-called unsinkable ship to disappear beneath the waves in such an unbelievably short amount of time? For more than a century now, historians and engineers alike have continued chasing the answer to this single haunting question. The simple fact that it struck. An iceberg is nowhere near enough to explain the full scope of this tragedy. Today, we are going to trace exactly what happened that fateful night, piece by piece, and uncover which specific factors combined to create the worst possible outcome. We will examine the ship's design, the icy conditions, the decisions made in those critical final hours, and the chain of failures that followed. By the end of this video, you will understand this disaster from a perspective that is almost never discussed in mainstream retellings. This is not simply a story about ice and steel. It is a story about human decisions made under extraordinary pressure. And once you understand every piece of that chain, you will never think about that fateful night the same way again. 2. At approximately 11:40 at night, the ship's starboard hull scraped along the hidden underwater edge of a massive iceberg. To the passengers on board, the moment of impact felt like nothing more than a faint, almost imperceptible shudder running through the floor. But below the waterline, something entirely different, and far more devastating, was already unfolding in complete silence. Several of the steel plate seams that made up the hull began quietly, separating under the immense pressure exerted by the ice. Regarding this specific detail, some researchers have theorized that the steel and rivets used in construction may have been considerably more brittle than expected in such freezing temperatures. In fact, later metallurgical analysis of recovered hull fragments revealed that certain rivets contained a noticeably higher concentration of impurities than modern shipbuilding standards would ever allow. In extremely cold water, steel becomes significantly more prone to fracturing, a phenomenon that shipbuilding techniques of that era were simply not equipped to accurately predict or account for. That said, this particular hypothesis cannot be treated as the sole and definitive cause of the sinking, and it remains an area of ongoing debate and verification within academic circles even today. What we do know with absolute certainty is that within just a few short minutes of the collision, water began pouring simultaneously into multiple compartments. Near the bow of the ship, the original designers had built the vessel to remain afloat, even if several compartments flooded. But they never anticipated that so many sections could be compromised at the exact same moment. In the end, this disaster was never the result of a single mistake, but rather the convergence of several small, seemingly unrelated failures happening all at once. Each failure on its own might have been survivable, but together they created a chain reaction that no design of that era could have withstood. Understanding this chain is essential to understanding why this tragedy became as catastrophic as it ultimately did. 3. Less than 20 minutes after the initial collision, the ship's hull began tilting forward in a way that was already impossible for anyone on board to ignore. The crew immediately began preparing to lower the lifeboats, but this process quickly revealed a serious and deeply unsettling problem no one had fully anticipated. The ship simply did not carry enough lifeboats to accommodate every single passenger and crew member on board. This was not a careless oversight in the traditional sense, but rather a well-documented historical fact, rooted in outdated safety regulations that calculated lifeboat requirements based on a ship's registered tonnage rather than its actual passenger capacity. The total number of people on board that night was approximately 200, yet the available lifeboats could carry a maximum of only around 1,178 people combined. To make matters considerably worse, Several lifeboats were launched during the initial chaos, without being filled anywhere close to their actual maximum capacity. Crew members attempted to follow the widely known protocol of loading, women and children first, but in the overwhelming panic of those critical minutes, clear and consistent command structure occasionally broke down entirely. Up on the tilting deck, fear and eerie calm existed side by side, as each passenger faced those final, desperate hours in their own deeply personal way. Some passengers reportedly still believed the ship could not possibly sink completely, a false sense of security that likely delayed several critical early evacuation efforts. In the end, this single structural failure, the severe shortage of lifeboats, became the pivotal turning point that forced maritime authorities around the entire world to completely rewrite international safety regulations. This particular moment in the tragedy stands as sobering evidence of exactly how much a simple lack of preparation can ultimately determine who lives and who does not. It remains one of the most studied failures in the history of maritime safety regulation to this very day. Immediately following the collision, the wireless operators, stationed in the radio room, sent out distress signals in every possible direction, without a moment of hesitation. This response was, by any historical measure, both immediate and entirely appropriate, given the technology and protocols available at that exact moment in time. The real problem, however, emerged not from the ship itself, but from the vessels that were supposed to receive that critical signal. Several nearby ships had already ended their scheduled radio operating hours for the night and had powered down their wireless equipment entirely, meaning they never received the distress call at all. Historical records show that at least one of the closest ships did, in fact, receive the signal yet failed to fully grasp the severity of the unfolding situation, which caused a significant and ultimately fatal delay in response. Most historians tend to interpret this failure not as a single individual's mistake, but rather as a structural limitation baked directly into the maritime communication practices and norms of that specific era. As a direct consequence, the nearest rescue vessel did not actually reach the disaster site until several agonizing hours had already passed. During those brutal hours, countless people succumbed to hypothermia while stranded in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. Water temperatures that night hovered dangerously close to freezing, and the human body could realistically survive in such conditions for only a matter of mere minutes at most. This devastating communication delay ultimately became the decisive turning point that completely transformed international maritime radio regulations, and it is the direct historical reason why every ship today is legally required to maintain continuous 24-hour radio monitoring. In the end, the act of communication itself did not fail on that terrible night, but the world simply was not yet prepared to properly receive and act upon it. That single gap between sending a signal and someone actually listening cost an enormous number of lives that could have otherwise been saved. As dawn finally broke over the horizon, the exact spot where the most magnificent ship in the world had been sailing just hours earlier now held nothing but calm, empty ocean water. Rescue vessels moved slowly across the surface, gathering scattered lifeboats one by one and pulling exhausted survivors aboard. Out of roughly 2,200 people who had been on board that fateful night, only around 700 survived to see that morning. So let us return one final time to the question we started with. What exactly sank the Titanic? The answer was never a single isolated cause. The collision with the iceberg, the steel and rivets weakened by freezing temperatures, the severe shortage of lifeboats, mandated by outdated regulations, and the tragically delayed rescue signal, all combined in precisely that order to create the worst possible outcome imaginable. Most historians today view this disaster not simply as a random accident, but as a textbook example of how several small, seemingly unrelated failures can chain together into an unstoppable catastrophe. And it is precisely because of this tragedy that modern ocean travel today includes lifeboat regulations, matched to actual passenger capacity, and mandatory 24-hour radio monitoring on every single vessel at sea. Even after more than a century, this ship's story continues to captivate people around the entire world, not because it is simply a story about sinking, but because it captures human arrogance, the raw power of nature, and remarkable human courage, all colliding in a single unforgettable night.